and welcome to CIO News. I am Khushbu, Soni, your host for the broadcast and chief editor at CIO News. This is our exclusive interview series on the topic of zero trust security trend and exclusive interview discussion with the CIOs and CISOs powered by Zscaler. It is a recorded session and will be available on our website, that is cionews.co.in, and our CIO News LinkedIn handle. It gives me an immense pleasure in introducing our guest for today. He is Mr. Gomeet Pant, the head of InfoSec services at GBS IS. Gomeet is a seasoned IT professional with broad information security and technology experience and array of certification like GICSP, CISSP, CISA, MCITP, and many more. He has led implementation for ISO 27001, ISO 22301 with a flair of secure business enablement. And he's been in the industry for quite some time. So, Gomeet, it's an absolute pleasure to have you today and to hear your best practices and your thought process on this topic.
Absolutely. Thanks for the introduction, Khushbu. It's a pleasure to be here. And just for the listeners or viewers of this, the views that I would express here on are personal and not related to what I do at ABB. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Perfect. Great. So, we'd like to begin with Gomeet putting across the first question to you around what are the security requirements that you believe are to be kept in place before organizations decide to move to digital platforms or conduct their business digitally?
This is a very broad question with, first of all, broad requirements and also very broad ramifications if not done right. So, if you ask me, the starting point for any digitalization or digital platform move is conventionally and will also forever be starting with a risk assessment. And risk assessment means understanding your risks thoroughly. So you're putting something on a digital platform, if I am understanding the question right, or if you're moving towards a digital platform or a cloud platform, then you need to know what you're putting, what's the worth of it, what kind of exposure does it have. Basis that, there is a need for putting the solution that would cater to the needs of it. So, for example, say you're buying a cloud service, or say a SaaS platform which is provided by the partner run on Azure. So that's one scenario. So if that's the case, then not only do you need to protect your assets that are there on the cloud by various methods, security technologies, processes, you also need to protect how your people connect to it. So there are a number of things that can get carried out. But if you have to ask me at a very high level, what do I need to do? That would be make sure that you assessed your risk right, understood the requirements of security that need to go into that solution. You have full visibility of what it takes to be for that platform to be on cloud. You've got visibility of who will connect, how will the data be accessed, what's the data life cycle like, what are your regulatory risks, all that evaluated. Implement a strong monitoring mechanism so that you are able to monitor what's going on with that, even after all the technologies and people and processes are in place. Have a strong monitoring and incident response procedures, because it's a cliched statement around incidents that it's not a matter of if you will be breached, it is a matter of when you will be breached. So you need to have full eyes on the inevitable. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And my next question is, like you said, right? I mean, one, it's also about the cloud aspect of it. And we've seen that in the current time, many organizations have started adopting cloud after the pandemic. And there's a huge acceleration to the adoption of cloud. So what strategies, you think are required to be considered to maintain the compliance for any cloud environment?
Okay. So there is a general notion that there are security issues with cloud. I don't think so in general, because in cloud, it's like, you started preparing a data center, say 20 years back. Let's take an example of an organization starting the data center 20 years back. They would have done their first refreshes around 2010 and or maybe to 2008, and then next around 2015. And then basically the organization's environment is legacy in some way, right? And then if it's a large organization, you might not know what's running on which server, where is what compute resource being consumed, what are all the network cables going through across here and there. So you have your own dark spots there. So compared to that, when you go move on to cloud, it's visible. You've got visibility into every aspect of what you have on the cloud. So visibility is there. The kind of data center assessments that get carried out at least tell you that from a cyber security standpoint and from a physical access security standpoint, those data centers are quite secure. So having said that, it's evident that cloud necessarily is not a secure piece. The unsecure part comes when you don't know your responsibilities as a cloud service consumer. So if you are if you're using an IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS, you've got your responsibilities that you need to take care of. As long as you're aware of that, and as long as you're taking care of that, mostly it's not something that is unsecure to use. So we've talked about one thing here so far, which is responsibility. So as you're moving to cloud, you must be very clear of what are your responsibilities. Don't be in a rush to move. Understand the design, because again, it's like you're setting up, let's say if you're going for a SaaS based application, there are certain configurations around user access that you need to make sure from day one. Validate the service provider, what are the kind of tools and technologies they are using. You have the right to ask all those questions. Based on the kind of data that you're putting, you need to ask for those questions and understand the risks to your information. Once you've done all of that, say if you're now moving into an IaaS or a PaaS scenario, your responsibilities keep increasing. So as you move towards, say, if say after pandemic you realize that having a data center in office might be risky, and you now plan to put that data center on cloud now, or you want to move some of those servers to cloud, there's nothing wrong with that. People are doing that all the time, and that is the future, not because it is secure or not because it's cheap. It's because it is scalable. It meets the IT demands much faster. The way we within premise can cater, it's much faster that you can have more visibility and control of your own environment from an IT management standpoint. So that move is happening. So if that's happening, then first of all design it right, especially if you're using an IaaS. There are many controls that are provided by the service providers themselves. Most of the times they are not enough. They give you the elementary controls, but then you need to build on top of it. Like for example, if you're going on a Microsoft service, you will find, I guess they call it NSGs for something like a firewall. But that's not enough. You need to have an intrusion prevention system. You cannot live without an intrusion prevention system on a system that's exposed on the internet. So you need to top it up. So you will have to apply the same concepts that applied on the premise. You cannot assume that this is now something that my cloud service provider will provide.
Yeah.
You and the same set of things that they used to do are very standard. They have been conventional. They need to be that way, that you understand what you're putting there. What are the risks surrounding it? What are the security controls, technical as well as process controls required? And you implement those based on the system that you've placed on the cloud. If you're planning to move a large set of information, then large set of controls need to go in, and you need to perform your regular tests at regular intervals to see everything is fine. So don't assume anything. Understand your responsibilities and deploy the technologies and processes which are befitting the cloud purpose.
Right, right. Great. And my next question is around, we've seen that organizations' data flows across endpoint, cloud, and web in real time. What is the data protection strategy for a complete visibility and control of organizations' data from device to cloud? So your thoughts on that?
That piece generally is a bit hazy right now. There are products in this space that can be used to monitor something, or you could use multiple technologies to combine stuff together. Like for example, a company which is a Azure shop, they may have data starting from their Azure system they will be able to figure out who access what resources on Azure. That can be something that can be done, but that's not true for all scenarios all the time. So if you're talking about who's accessing from their hosts to cloud, there are mechanisms that you can use, but the technologies, like if you're asking for visibility, reporting, and control as well, then the technologies in the space of CASB come in, and a lot of control gets augmented by those. There are certain features that your standard DLP products may also provide. But if you're looking at full visibility, reporting, governance, monitoring, and in some way control, then I would say that you will have to put in a CASB solution, and a well-configured one. It's not that you implement a CASB and voila, the job is done.
Right.
You will have to configure it right. You will still have to monitor what's coming out of it, but yeah, that's what you need to do.
Correct. Great. And John Hodson, what are the zero trust strategies that can be incorporated for a secure network and application access?
So zero trust is a concept, as you would have heard many times. It's not one technology that will take care of everything for you. So zero trust is a concept, which means that it's not about trust. It's about no trust.
Right.
So you are saying that I don't trust you. Like for example, if you have a server and there is an ID, let's say Gomeet, and I log into that, does not mean that I transmit over the wire myself and I go to the server and I log in myself. It's an identity, right? It can be associated to me only because I have the password for it, but there is no other association between this and the identity and myself, right? So the concept says that I just don't trust you, that when you say Gomeet and the password combination, it is you. I might want to look at the other things that are associated with you to establish that I can believe the identity. I don't trust the human. I don't believe that's the identity. I believe the factors that constitute the identity.
Right.
So those things together are required for a zero trust. And if you are talking about networks, then again, my definition versus your definition versus John Kinderwag's definition, who coined the term long back, the definitions might change, but the ideas would be that you will have to have multiple methods of verifying if the identity is what it claims to be, or then you allow or you deny the access. So if you are talking in network space, you have to identify both the host as well as the identity of the user. So host is also an identity, basically trying to connect the network. An application layer also, you can implement the same. I mean, there are tools and technologies available. Again, you have to configure it right. It cannot be that there is like a software or a hardware box that you implement in your network and you say turn on zero trust and your environment is zero trust enabled. There are many things that help you meet the concept to your requirement.
Right. Awesome, great. My one last question on this is, what are the strategies should be in place to prevent the compromise of paying the ransom by blocking the threads before they even attack?
Okay, if there was an answer to this, most of the organizations will be secured, and our friends on the other side of the table, the ransomware players, would be jobless or may have already moved into security, but it is not. So you could do some stuff. it's not that you cannot do anything about it to at least decrease the risk or reduce the impact of risk from ransomware attacks. Some general things that you should do, like you asked a question where there is a factor of before it happens to you.
Yeah.
So let me try and target that, because that's the space where you can save yourself. Otherwise, once the ransomware comes in, and mostly the intranet zones are slightly flat, not zero trust based today, it can be quite damaging. So, a few things that you could do is, first of all, try and see if you're a large organization. Mostly these ransomware players will be trying to do some level of knowledge gathering about you. The best is if you can catch somebody at the recon space itself, or somebody trying to do weaponization. So recon space, you should monitor the chatter around the organization and dark web. Then you should see if there is a domain that gets created in your company's name, or a typo squatted domain, because those would be used to send phishing emails. Those would be used to send users to a targeted link from where malware can be dropped into the environment. So if you're able to catch there, that's the best.
Right.
Because then you will be averting attacks before they happen. Otherwise, if you are suspecting that something can come in, then your complete technology stack is at question. First of all, starting from your firewalls, from your IPSs. IPSs may not be able to work that well, because mostly the traffic would be going via the proxies, and proxies might be trying to protect your environment by antivirus scanning anyway. But say that also is gone through, then you've got EDR you should be having at the endpoint. System should be hardened. And last but not the least, on a concept level, but has to become a reality, that when one host gets infected, that's the only host that should get infected. So you need to have micro segmentation. You need to be able to say that once this host is infected, it should not send back whatever is the malicious traffic to a parallel host somewhere, like what happened in WannaCry. 445 as a port was used, and usually within the LAN, there's no restriction. So unauthenticated 445 or use of outdated protocols, that all leads to an attack within a LAN segment.
Correct.
So it is important that there is a restriction from host A to host B.
Right.
I was having this conversation with a colleague of mine. I was asking that what is the need today of having anything open between this guy and this guy in the network? Right. It's not that they're sharing data by some method. These days, even the file shares have started moving to Azure or AWS cloud. So why do you need any sort of trust or any sort of access between this to this device? Why even let ICMP or ping be allowed?
Correct.
Right. So that is what is important. And leaving SMB first of all open between systems. SMB V1, which was the vulnerable I'm talking about, still MS17, then WannaCry. So it's no sense at all anymore. So if this device has to, first of all, not allowed, and if at all allowed, there needs to be reason to trust. And that's where these concepts of micro-segmentation and zero trust come in. If we are able to achieve it by any which ways, by either containment by EDR, containment at the network layer and IPS before something explodes in the system, then that's the only way you can protect from a large-scale attack. Because today's ransomware players have to play on a volumetric attack, right? It is also possible that there may be not east-west movement. Once you have an attack, let's say host has been infected, host A has been infected. It is not necessary that it will only be a horizontal or an east-west attack. It is also possible that over time, the ransomware players would have made a lot of zombies in your environment and may have access to many such systems. So that's where even micro-segmentation may not work, right? In that case, it is most likely going to be that you will have to have solutions which will make sure that, first of all, those hosts are micro-segmented, but the first time that it happens, you detect and you act fast. Otherwise, this is, I'll tell you one use case that I had, or maybe I may call it more like a case study, that an environment can be poisoned completely if you compromise the DHCP server. So you compromise the DHCP server at 7:30 a.m. in the morning. Whenever a new computer comes to renew its lease, it takes back the malware along with it. So, you've got a single point of failure there as well. So stuff like that, or DNS poisoning, if you do, you are able to point the user to directly download a malware. So things like those can also lead to a lot of problems. So even micro-segmentation may not work. So then it's a combination of technologies, first to prevent from ransomware to come into the network. And if it's come eventually, then you will have to segment it out or micro segment the systems out, so that there is nothing goes out of the system that is not required to go out. So that is generally what you can do. But it's a very difficult question for all. If anybody had an answer to it, they would be a billionaire already.
But I think very nicely put across, Gomeet, and very detailedly answer all the questions. So it was great interacting with you, Gomeet, and thank you for sharing all your insights with us. I'm sure there are good takeaways for all our viewers from this episode. So thank you once again, and for joining us on this platform.
Sure, most welcome. Thank you so much, Khushbu.
Thank you.